So the Russian economy is in critical condition, and we all know this, and Putin's trying to cover this up. I'm not making the case now, and today is October 16th, 2025. I'm not making the case that it's going to implode tomorrow. If it implodes tomorrow, something's happened that I didn't see. I'm not arguing that, but I am saying I'm going to show you the last 3 days worth of news about the Russian economy, and you can see for yourself how things are just in pretty bad shape. So we're going back again, it's the 16th, we're going back as far as the 14th, and we're just going to look at a few articles. So here, let's look at this. What's happening with Russia's industry? Large Russian enterprises are switching to 3 and 4 day work weeks, Russian media outlets report. So Ural-Vagan Zavod, one of the world's leading manufacturers of armored vehicles, is now operating below full capacity. Part of the workforce has been moved to a 4 day work week, and that's not unusual. We're seeing a lot of this. Putin's officials are rushing to reassure the public, claiming that defense orders are keeping the situation under control. But that also begs the question, what happens when the defense orders are no longer because the war is over? There's going to be massive dislocation within the Russian economy. A simple truth, factories are surviving from one military contract to the next, while the civilian sector remains empty. Okay, then there's Rostelmash, Russia's flagship agricultural machinery producer, which has been operating 3 days a week since August. Then there's the St. Petersburg tractor plant, which first sent its workers on an extended leave and then introduced a shortened work week. Okay, tractor sales in Russia have fallen by 20 to 25%. And then there's KAMAZ. Units operating or below capacity have been reduced. Schedule since August. Sales of trucks over 14 tons have plummeted by 60%. Then there's AutoVAZ, maker of Lada. Lada sales have fallen by nearly 25%. The plant, unable to withstand price competition from Chinese cars, now operates 4 days a week. And the list goes on and on and on and on and on and on. The conclusion here is this: mass layoffs would mean admitting an economic catastrophe, something the Kremlin is unwilling to do. Instead, authorities pressure enterprises to keep people formally employed while effectively sending them on short weeks or unpaid leave. The degradation of the Russian industry cannot be stopped by a shorter work week. Sooner or later, the systemic collapse of entire sectors will become even more deafening. And the conclusion was this: the deeper the militarization of the Russian economy, the faster Russia destroys its own future. I think that's very, very fair. Okay, also on October 14th, we saw this. The past month of Russian stock market losses looked bound for Middle Earth. I mean, it's just dropping. So I looked this up myself just to make sure. It's not that I don't trust the source. That's fine. Here's the Russian index. If you just Google Russia Stock Market Index, MOEX, CFD, and you'll see the same pattern for yourself. All right, this is since the beginning of the year. All right, October 15th, what's going on here? Impact from Ukrainian drone strikes will suppress Russia's refining capacity rates until at least mid-2026, according to the International Energy Agency. Previously, we had assumed a normalization of refining activity as we approached year-end, but now embed a more cautious outlook. The increasingly widespread and significant Ukrainian drone campaign against Russian oil refineries and infrastructure has so far cut the nation's crude processing by an estimated 500,000 barrels a day, the agency said. The nation's oil export revenues declined to a 3-month low of $13.4 billion. Again, that's the agency's estimation. The decline came as Russia's crude supply revenues, which rose $200 million month on month, were more than offset by a $440 million drop for oil product exports, the report said. So there's a difference between crude. Crude oil is just like raw oil that's being sent out to be refined. That went up, and then there's refined products that went down. And now they actually make more money on the refined products than on the crude oil. Russian fuel supplies to other countries in September reached 2.4 million barrels per day. This is the lowest in a decade, excluding April of 2020 during the COVID-19 pandemic. Okay, so it's having some kind of an effect. Okay, October 15th, let's look at this. 57 Russian regions are now facing fuel shortages after Ukrainian drone attacks on refineries. Moscow could soon depend on imports. Now, this is speculation for up to 60% of its fuel supply. I don't think it'll get that far. Maybe it will. I mean, but it is importing fuel from other places. And then on top of that, it's also disrupting logistics and accelerating inflation. And so there's a lot of benefits to the Ukrainians for doing these attacks on oil refineries. And here also on October 15th, this is the map of Russian gasoline and diesel shortages, updated map of the regions of Russia where the shortages of gasoline and diesel and how early it was first reported. So the darker it is, the earlier it was reported. As always, it's worse in the occupied territories, added 3 new regions since the last update. So again, the darker red it is, the worse it is. But, you know, it looks like Moscow and St. Petersburg are now starting to be impacted by this to some degree. Okay. Also on October 15th, Russians are already waiting a day to buy gasoline are subjected to further humiliation as local Krasnoyarsk news asked them how they feel about the new fuel taxes that the government has been imposing. So here's some of the translation. I'll be paying 13,000 now with the increase. It turns out to be about 700 rubles more expensive, I think. Well, I think it will hit a lot beyond my pocket, and the increase in gasoline also affects the final cost, as it were, on how we live. Well, it's bad, of course. Well, what can I do? We only subordinate. I can obey. I am calm and respectful. And he's going on and on about this. And again, there's not a lot that he can do. He's right. I believe our state government, it will become like that. They will do it somehow. It'll hit you in the pocket by 225 ordinary rubles. Well, no, to be honest, 225 rubles won't hit you. So I think it's normal and order of things. Tax for motorists. Our region has not changed since 2013, and some types will change since then. Okay, so that's what you're seeing on Russian news. Okay, let's move this out and see what else is going on October 15th. So here we see a long line of cars queued up for gasoline. Russia, which is referred to as a gas station, stands in lines for gas and exports it from Belarus and China. It's pretty weird to see this. It'd be like not having oil in Saudi Arabia. It just doesn't make any sense. Okay, next, October 15th. Another Russian economic collapse warning sign. Russian banks are now building up reserves because they are expecting a wave of bankruptcies and loan defaults in the near future. That's where they are. So banks. Okay, and it gets worse. October 16th, unable to obtain any fuel at all, Russia's small gas station chains are going bankrupt. Now, some gas stations are either have it because those refineries haven't been hit or don't have it because the refineries have been hit. But the small gas stations, like the mom and pop kind of stores, they're getting hit really hard. Okay, October 16th, the real price of gasoline in Russia has increased by 50% in 4 months. Local publication has published a chart of purchasing for prices of AI 95 gasoline. The current price is 100,000 rubles per ton. Okay, and then we also see this, so this was one comment. Another one was saying that the price of gasoline for Russians has increased by 73% in the same period. This is since January 2025. So I'm not sure exactly where the line is. Gone up by 50%, gone up by 73%. By when you measure it as part of the process here, 50% in 4 months or 73% since January, but it's gone up significantly. Okay. Also on October 16th, Ukraine strikes in St. Petersburg area ports cut Russia's entire low-grade fuel exports by 43% in only a month's time. Well, here we're talking about naphtha flows. What's naphtha? It's not really gasoline. Naphtha is a volatile, flammable hydrocarbon mixture from petroleum or natural gas used as a petrochemical feedstock, gasoline component, and solvent. So it's kind of like the lower end of the refined products, if I can say that way. If I'm wrong about that, please correct me. Okay. Also on October 16th, that's today, Russia fuel crisis continues to spread with the Irkutsk region, banning individuals from purchasing gasoline, now only available for emergency government vehicles. As weather worsens, roads to the region have become impassable for trucks carrying fuel supplies after funds for maintenance were cut off last year. So, yeah. And again, I was talking about this roads, 2,000 kilometers of roads being built in the occupied territories over the last few months or something like that. I can't see that that's the case when this is in Russia itself, in Irkutsk. Where is that, by the way? It's out here just above Mongolia. So that's where this is. Okay. Now, also, Indian refiners. So Modi is telling Trump, "Look, we're going to stop buying this Russian oil." Okay, this was all just in the news yesterday. Indian refiners are preparing to cut Russian oil imports under U.S. pressure. Reuters was reporting. Trump claims Modi assured him India will stop buying Russian crude, but officials warn an immediate halt could spike global prices. Washington has linked reduced tariffs on Indian goods to a cut in Russian oil purchases. So looks like that's going to happen, and that's going to impact the Russian economy as well. And then we see this it's not just oil. It's not just like what's going on there. The entire economy is in a world of hurt. The number of Russian coal companies in the red zone of risk has increased to 53 from 30 in April, said Russian Deputy Energy Minister. Like, how is coal even affected? It's not like they're bombing coal. Yeah, but in waging the war and having the men shipped off to the military and not being able to work it and not having the trucks or not being able to repair them and not being able to repair the other things that are related to the coal industry, it's all compounding. According to him, the industry's consolidated losses for the first 7 months of 2025 were twice as high as for the whole of last year. That's $2.8 billion. According to estimates by the Russian Energy Ministry, by the end of the year, coal companies' losses could exceed 300 billion rubles or 3.8 billion US dollars, and their accounts payable will amount to 1.5 trillion rubles or 19 billion US dollars. They can't pay out either, and that's going to have another ripple effect on the economy. And then he concludes with this, I'm not making it up. Indeed, the industry is struggling right now, but at the same time, it is working very hard. Okay, you can lie to yourself all day, but it's in a world of hurt. Okay, but never fear. Russia's main priority of achieving the objectives of the special military operation is still fully funded. This, according to the finance minister. For other things, there is much less money, as follows from his speech. All the main priorities, he says, that's why they are called priorities, must be funded. And today we reviewed the amendments to the current year's budget law. That is what's happening. Despite the fact that the revenue base forecast had decreased, I can tell you why. The volume of expenditures has not been reduced through redistribution. Within the overall budget amount, we are allocating the necessary appropriations to ensure that the priorities that is of the special military operation are fully funded. How about that? So, yeah, I mean, he understands what priorities are. I'll give him that. But it feels like it's, playing the violin on the Titanic. Like it's just in bad shape. I'll leave you with this last little bit by Darth Putin after my shout out to John Noonan, a graduate Patreon member. So thank you, John. Darth Putin put this out. This guy is freaking witty. Ukrainian strikes on our refineries have no effect as average price of fuel is now under 20 rubles per liter. Prices that Westerners can only dream of. I don't know how he comes up with this stuff. I wish I was just as clever as this guy. All right, my friends, thank you for your time. Thank you for the likes and the shares and the subscribes. I hope that helps you understand where the Russian economy is. I mean, it's not collapsing tomorrow, but it is in really bad shape. Thank you for being the kind of person that cares about Ukraine.